Hello and welcome to Pluribus Unum's Fireside Chats. Not as good as FDR's, but hey, it's something. Oh boy. This election, oh boy. I think this one will be the one that will prove whether or not the world is truly falling or not. But before we get into that, let's get right into the news. First, an update from Ecuador. The Ecuadorian election was actually pretty interesting, not gonna lie. I wasn't sure what I was expecting, but I'm actually very, very surprised what happened. Okay, so for those who don't know, let's just briefly go over, the Ecuadorian election is a rematch between Daniel Noboa and Luis Gonzalez, and, they were the top candidates in the race, and the last time the election rolled around, Luis Gonzalez got 33%, while Daniel Noboa got 23%. Pretty noticeable amount. Then, of course, when the general election rolled around, it basically just went 51-48. But this time, it's actually very interesting. This time, in the first round, Daniel Noboa got 44.16% of the vote. Meanwhile, Luisa Gonzalez got 43.99% of the votes. Essentially a statistical tie. And in fact, it was actually a huge issue because this wasn't what was expected. What was expected was, here's what happened. Only one of four pollsters that were announced by the National Electoral Council in the country were allowed to publish a exit poll, and that one had an exit poll of Daniel Noboa leading by 8 points. That pollster literally even went so far as to say that Daniel Noboa could have possibly very, very, very slimly avoided a runoff. But now, that's not possible. That is just clearly not possible. And lo and behold, it's really, really close. This is literally a way better showing for Luisa Gonzalez than I thought. And this literally opens the door for the possibility that she could win in the next round. Because here's the thing, this is the thing, you might be wondering, but wait, but I thought the last time she did overwhelmingly good in the first round, and then when the next round rolled around, it didn't turn out so well. But there are multiple factors that are an issue. You see, Daniel Noboa at that time was a political unknown. He wasn't even running ideologically. He was running as a not left, not right, forward type of guy. He was running as a centrist. But now he's been placed solidly on the right wing. So now there's a little bit of a problem for him. Now he has essentially cut off all support that he could possibly get from the left, which it's not necessarily the most significant thing, but it is a factor that is noticeable. Luisa Gonzalez, they know who she is. She is a candidate that will basically run as if she is Rafael Correa. That is who she is. And there are people who love Rafael Correa, and there are people who hate Rafael Correa. Yes, the peak is kind of like a peak. It's one of the big problems that was with her in the initial round. She basically kind of peaked at that. Some people who were broadly left-wing kind of did coalesce around her, but for the most part, her support kind of peaked with the Correists, or people who were at least indifferent to Correa. Or I guess people who have at least lean positive. If you think Correa is good at the very least, then you probably will vote for her in the next round. Meanwhile, if you broadly think, he's bad, not even necessarily he's evil, because there's some people in the Ecuador politics that literally think that Correa is the devil on earth. But meanwhile, there are other people who, I guess at this point, think Noboa is basically the devil on earth. And, well, what's going to happen now? And that's actually when I decided to do something a little interesting. I decided to look at the rest of the candidates again, and do a little bit of an experiment that I did last time. You see, not for Ecuador, but if you remember, for the two most recent Brazilian presidential elections, 2018 and 2022, I decided to do a little bit of a guessing game, where I decided to take the numbers of the candidates that were running, basically take all the people who voted for Bolsonaro, and then all the people who voted for the PT candidate, Fernando Haddad in 2018 and Lula in 2022, and add all of the smaller candidates that were more ideologically aligned with them, just to make a guess on how they would vote in the next round. I know that's a little bit of an assumption, but listen. When I did this in 2018, here's what I predicted. I predicted that Fernando Haddad would get a little over 48 million votes, and Bolsonaro would get 58 million votes. Like a little over that. And when the results came in, Jair Bolsonaro got a little over 57 million votes, and Fernando Haddad got a little over 47 million votes. I got the margins right, but I didn't get the exact numbers right. My 2022 numbers were a lot more off. I predicted that Lula would get basically a little under 61 million votes, and Bolsonaro would get a little over 51 million votes, but Bolsonaro overperformed, and Lula slightly underperformed, but that's the slight issue. I'll never forget the 2018 one. That was really, really close. So let's just take a brief look. You see, I can't really verify 100% certainty all of the okay. So of the candidates, 5 of them lean right, 5 of them are right wing, 4 of them are centrist, if I remember correctly. Now, it would be easy to just go, the left-wing candidates would vote for Luisa, and the right-wing candidates, those people will vote for the right-wing candidate, and the centrists, I guess, just don't count. But I can't do that, because there are a lot of other ifs, ands, and heres and theres, due to multiple sorts of shifts in the Ecuadorian politics sphere, and just general here and there types things. For example, there's one candidate named Ivan Saquila. I was originally going to say, I'm a little bit, I don't necessarily know who his people would vote for in the second round, because on one end, he was the judge that ruled against Korea in a specific court case, but he was also rumored to possibly be working with a deal with Korea to get him off the hook for that deal. So, I don't know. The Amigo movement is actually interesting as well, because I originally thought that for 100% certainty that they were going to back Luisa, because their candidate backed her last time. But here's a problem. One of the people who is now in charge of the Amigo movement is Yaku Perez, the candidate that was the left-wing anti-Koreas candidate, who really, really hates Korea and his politicians. So, that's a problem there. And another one, just wanted to mention this one, Jorge Escala, who very much rejected the idea of even remotely possibly forming an alliance with the Correists. All right, with some of that out of the way, let's just get into what I actually think. Okay, so first, some things are obvious. Movimiento Construye and Creating Opportunities, CRIO, those guys are 100% going to back Noboa because they're the hard right candidates. They're the hard right people. So they're going to back Noboa. And I think those two parties voted for him last time. At least CRIO, if I remember correctly. And another party, the People, Equality, and Democracy Party, because they were in an alliance with Noboa's party previously, but that alliance fell through this election. So there's a chance that they might back him in the next round, but I'm not 100% certain. And the next, for Luisa, the parties that I think are going to be backing her in the next round are the Democratic Left Party with Carlos Rabascal and the Socialist Party / Broad Front for Ecuador led by Pedro Granja. And that's because Rabascal is literally a Correist who literally infiltrated the party. So I think he's just going to get this party to back her in the second round. And Pedro Granja actually did propose a massive left-wing alliance in the last election to back the Correist candidate, which Jorge Escala denied. But the next one is actually a bit of a surprising take, is that I think Pachakutik will probably be backing her as well. Now, you might be remembering, Pachakutik is the party that was the anti-Correist left-wing party, but Leonidas Iza is actually at least friendly to the Correists, so there's a chance that he would back them. And Iza is kind of a bit of a kingmaker. Even though he's not even though his results weren't that big comparatively, he is the third largest candidate. And, here's the thing. If we were to do that calculations, she'd get a little over 5,000 votes. Meanwhile, Noboa would still be at, a little over the results that he got in the first round. Again, there still be more. I don't know. I don't know if the rest of the candidates are going to, the rest of the cans might surprise me. You'd have to actually look at who endorses who. But I'm just saying, as of right now, she actually does have a better chance than I thought she did. All right, next one. Big thing that is very obvious, like very obvious corruption is obvious. The State Department's procurement forecast, revised as of late 2024, lists Tesla as a recipient of the largest expected contract, with Marco Rubi's department planning to buy $400 million worth of armored Tesla. Like very obviously, yeah. No shit, this was gonna happen. Elon Musk bought Donald Trump specifically to benefit his own pocket. That's literally all he did. He spent all this time and money to basically guarantee that he's going to get the benefits of the world. And it's the same thing with Doge, where he literally is just like, he's like announcing, like, oh yeah, I'm going to cut funding to this organization, to this organization, to this organization. Coincidentally, the same organizations that literally are doing investigations into Tesla and are trying to actually fix Tesla. Oh yeah, by the way, Elon Musk got all of our social security numbers and put them in the Doge accounts, and then magically the Doge website got hacked. Whoops. Oops. Uh-oh, SpaghettiOs. Literally, there's not much I can say except hopefully the Democrats will do something. Oh wait, the Democrats actually have announced something. Democrats are pissed. They've announced that they've seen all the stuff and they're pissed. Oh, they're not pissed at like Trump or Musk or any of the sort. They're pissed at organizations like MoveOn.org and Indivisible who are trying to get them to do something. As stated here, members of the Steering and Policy Committee, with House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries in the room on Monday, complained activist groups like MoveOn and Indivisible have facilitated thousands of phone calls to members' offices. People are pissed, a senior House Democrat who was at the meeting said of the lawmakers' reaction to the calls. The Democrats said Jeffries himself is very frustrated at the groups, who are trying to stir up a more confrontational approach to Trump. A Jeffries spokesperson disputed the characterization and noted that access to their office regularly engages with dozens of stakeholders, But basically, and a similar thing happened where he literally was at a meeting or whatever. He literally was like at a press conference, and then he was literally like, "What do you want us to do? We're in the opposition. What do you want us to do?" And I'm just sitting there like, like this. A thing was released today where it's like, look at what the Democrats did this week, and one of them is like, we sent a letter to Elon Musk. It's like, gee, I wonder why people hate you. And listen to some of this. Like, listen to this. Some Democrats see the callers as barking up the wrong tree, given their limited power and the minority power in progress. Don Beyer says, it's been a constant theme of us saying, please call the Republicans. You dumbasses. They're not going to call the Republicans because the Republicans don't give a shit about what they're doing. It's the equivalent of saying, like, man, why are you guys trying to get us, the Social Democrats of Germany, to be, like, doing something? Why don't you call Hitler so that he could stop doing the Holocaust? Gee, they're not going to call him because he's not going to actually do anything to address the problem. And it's the same thing with this bullshit where, like, Democrats are literally trying to be like, they're trying to logic their way to Republicans. It's like, guys, Republicans are mouth-breathing, idiotic dumbasses who have no brain cells and are inbred. They know nothing. They literally know nothing. You can't logic your way with people who are so dumb that they literally voted for a man who explicitly runs on, I am going to make your life worse, and then they go, yes, Daddy Trump, yes. You can't logic your way out of this. I do not understand what the Democrats, I do not understand what their fucking plan is. They don't have a plan. They're literally just wagging their they're not even doing that. Like, it's literally like, what are they even doing? I do not understand what they are even remotely doing. It's literally just like, what do you expect us to do? We're in the minority. Guys, when the GOP is in a minority, they let you fucking know. Like, bro, literally every day, it's like, let's do this thing. Like, literally every single day that was happening when you guys won in 2018, when you guys were doing a lot of things in 2018, when you guys were doing a lot of things in 2020, when you guys were doing a lot of things during the Biden administration, like, literally all that time, literally all Republicans had to do was basically say, yeah, I'm not going to do this thing. And then you guys literally bent the knee and just like, why don't you guys try doing any of that? Like, genuinely am so confused on this. The Democrats are literally doing all this stuff here. Like, they keep trying to, like, this, it's the weakness of liberalism. They keep trying to reach across the aisle. Like, it's the same thing. Jerry Connolly, he literally said, like, this week, or like last week or something, it's like, I tried to subpoena Elon Musk, and I thought that Republicans would join me. I was shocked to find out that they didn't. It's like, why would they? Why would they? He's gonna bankroll them all. You are telling the prostitutes to arrest their fucking pimp. Why would they do that? You absolute spineless, weak cowards. They are so allergic to actually doing anything useful that they are willing to spend their time and money to let people who have been helping them for years lose, while letting people who hurt them move forward. Jared Golden led efforts to make the Build Back... Jared Golden, Jared Moskowitz, all the fucking Blue Dogs and, like, New Dem losers, they led an effort to kill Joe Biden's big plan, his magnum opus, the thing that he was like, I'm going to use this to move forward with the administration. Like, I'm going to use this to get us back on track from COVID. I'm going to use this to be my big strategy, my big bill, my Obamacare. They killed that bill, and for some reason, it's Cori Bush and Jamal Bowman that got massive amounts of money in primary bids, and all the big Democrats rushing to, like, say, like, we gotta get these guys out of the Congress. Not Jared Golden. Jared Golden literally voted against the Build Back Better plan. Where was his primary opponent? He looked at the Build Back Better plan that he helped kill and went, still too much money, I'm gonna vote against it. Meanwhile, Jamal Bowman and Cori Bush say, we were promised that this bill would be really good, so we're going to vote against it. And then they're like, we must end them now! The real reason was, of course, because they stepped on the toe of Israel, and, you can't have that in politics. Jared Golden, his knees are like calloused as fuck for Israel. And this is the biggest fucking brain-dead, stupid thing that I genuinely am flabbergasted by, that I genuinely am just so fucking confused by. Like Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer have made it very abundantly clear, they've said this multiple times, that they want to make the Democrats, like, have a more conciliatory message this time around. They want to change their strategy up. Then, conveniently, Kirsten Gillibrand announced that she's literally going to do the exact same thing the fucking Democratic Party has done millions and millions of times before, try to rig primaries so that corporate-backed candidates are the ones in charge, as she's trying to do in Michigan, North Carolina, and what's the other one? She tried to do it in another state. There's another swing state that she was trying to do this in. Maine, that's Maine. Yeah, Maine. Like, bro, that is also flabbergasted. Literally, you did that already with Cal Cunningham, and you did it again with Sarah Gideon. That didn't fucking work, did it? You spent millions of dollars pushing those two to win the primaries over the will of the voters. And guess what? You guys failed. Then you did it again in North Carolina in 2022. That didn't work either, did it? As the old saying goes, third time's the charm, boys. But back to what I was trying to say before. One of the things that is just dumb about the fact that they're trying to change their strategy from the 2016, 2017 era politics, like, why they're bending the knee, this is one reason why it's stupid. Like, if you remember, back at that time, liberals, like, they were ready. Like there was the Pussy March, whatever the fuck it was called, the March for Women, where they had the pussy hats, and like whenever, like, when Trump appointed Kavanaugh, like, Democratic senators were literally filibustering. They were literally like rushing crazy, like, hell no to Kavanaugh, hell no to Kavanaugh. They were holding protests and rallies and organizing. They were doing all that shit. And guess what? It worked. Democrats won 41 seats in the 2018 midterms. Like, but I don't get it. It worked last time. Why are you going, oh, well, we can't do that now? It's like, why not? It worked. Why are you choosing to repeat these dumb strategies that don't work, but then trying to not repeat the strategies that actually did work? The real reason is obvious. Corporate bought politics, capitalism, the fact that Democrats are fucking, like, bought and paid for by Israel, the reasons are pretty obvious. But hey, maybe the newer faces might have a change of heart. You know what? Why don't we take a look at one of the newest members of the Congress for a let's take a look at one of the newest members of the Democratic Caucus has to say about their plan for 2024 or 2026. We have to fuck Trump! Really? Really? That's what we have to do? Fucking dumbasses. Anyways, with all that out of the way, let's move on to the main topic of this video. Let's move on from a depressing story of world politics to another depressing story about world politics. Germany. German politics is one of those ones, they're a Western liberal democracy, so we don't have to talk about them. We don't have to talk about a lot about their, past. It's not like Latin America where things are, actually fucking interesting, but, we have to talk a little bit about a little bit about some of their previous politics. So let's just start here. After the war, we don't talk about what happened. I guess we'll talk a little bit about Germany. Was a thriving liberal democracy of progress and value in the late 1920s, early 1930s. Then, for a little bit of time, they just disappeared from the world. I don't know. Something happened. I think we all get the picture about that. But after the 40s, Germany had shifted back. They were like, redo. So they just went back to normal. And then after reunification, they basically shifted to pretty much be a standard liberal democracy. You know how liberal democracies are. They have a broad party, the center left, broad party, the center right. They fight for control every once in a while, and it kind of just became standard German politics. It basically became their politics for years. And things didn't really solidify and have a shift in German politics until the rise of a German politician by the name of Angela Merkel, German chancellor for 16 years, who, to many, was seen as the de facto leader of Europe during that time. She was well known for her center-right Christian democratic views, a pretty borderline moderate, all things considered. I don't really have much negative to say about her, but that's kind of because, when I kind of started getting into politics, she was kind of just kind of a grandfathered in figure. You don't really, this is probably, there are probably some people who are, way more into politics during her actual tenure that are probably going to look at what I say and saying blasphemy, but, to me, she was just kind of, just there. It's sort of, in a very ironic sense, it's sort of like Putin, in the modern day, we see Putin as there. Putin is there. We cannot imagine a world pre-Putin. And to me, when that happened, I couldn't imagine a world pre-Angela Merkel. And unlike Putin, who has very obvious negative connotations due to all of his shady shenanigans, Angela Merkel, again, was just seen as a broadly center-right Christian Democrat. To an extent, she's probably more left-wing than a lot of the conservatives in America, even at the time. Before our conservatives kind of went in a little bit of that. But she was very much better, kind of in the same way where we look at Canadian conservatives are way better than the conservatives we have here because they believe in climate change. They believe in gay rights or whatever. I don't necessarily know the full ins and outs about our politics. I tried to look her up. I tried to read into her politics. Yeah, for the most part, it's just kind of Granted, she was in a coalition with the center-left for a long time, so she kind of had to, probably moderate some of her more hard-right stances, if she had any. Because, again, especially considering, German politics, even their conservatives at the time were a little, afraid of harder right tendencies for very obvious reasons. I could see why even libs in America might be libbing out over her. She wagged her finger at Putin. She didn't scapegoat migrants during the 2015 migrant crisis, even went so far as to use there's a German principle, I forget the exact phrasing, but it's a specific German, thing where they are a very welcoming culture, except for that one time. I wish I could say that I could not do a lot of Hitler references, but, it's kind of impossible. It's just really impossible. You can't talk about German politics without even acknowledging the fact that they had the fucking Nazi regime. For extensively worse, that They are a very prominent role in German politics. Their greatest shame. But I mean, like, I'll be real. Like, full disclosure, again, she was just kind of there for me. I didn't really know much about her. I didn't really care much about her. But I was basically indifferent to her existence. So when she announced her retirement in 2021, while it was, like, a bit of a shock, just the idea of, like, oh, she's gonna be gone, and she's like a prominent politician to the point where, like, a lot of people around the world, like, knew Angela Merkel. But, you know, I was kind of just like, you know, hopefully we get something better out of it. And, well, did we? The next chancellor was a man by the name of Olaf Scholz. Was he better than her? Yes, but not by much. Probably because, similar to her, he also had to start doing some reaching across the aisle to get things done, so he had to moderate some of his stances, which, was a bit of a problem. You know, he did some fine things on domestic policy. You know, he did a lot about COVID. He was trying to push Germany away from coal and nuclear energy. He maintained Germany's lax immigration rules. You know, kind of like a standard social democratic type thing, but as, like, with Merkel, like, one of her big things was kind of like being a forefront for Europe in the world scene. You know, again, she wagged her finger at Putin. She had multiple meetings with Putin where she and Putin basically just kind of like were really going at each other. Like, not really necessarily like angrily, but like she was definitely like a stern finger wag at him. There's a very infamous story that kind of like gets spread around a lot where it's like she let Hitler, but I guess if you had to compare Hitler to any of the people in the world scene, I mean, Putin would probably be the most accurate. She told Putin, Putin heard a story about how when she was a kid, she got attacked by a dog, and then she's now scared of dogs. So then when Putin held a meeting with her, he literally brought in a dog, and then basically told the dog, like, go up to her, go, like, lick her, go, like, have her pet you, whatever. Basically just it's a show of, like, I'm stronger than you, I know your weaknesses. But with that, there's big shoes to fill, and Olaf Scholz really wanted to fill those shoes. He wanted to be known as, like, he wanted to continue the legacy of, like, Germany being a big forefront figure in the world scene. As such, he was very adamantly supportive of two nations during massive conflicts that happened during his tenure. One was Ukraine, giving them a lot of funding during his administration, and the other being Israel. And that latter one got him into a little bit of a criticism, especially considering, you know, a lot of people like to use certain heated language about, like, people on both sides of the Israel-Palestine conflict make a certain, like, apt comparison to a certain figure in German history. Israelis basically using the legacy of the Holocaust to justify the actions they do to the Gazans, while most other people point out the fact that a lot of the things that the Israelis do can be directly comparable to the things that Hitler did. And unfortunately, Olaf Scholz, due to the whole, like, due to the German guilt, like, every single politician post-Hitler in Germany has had to basically apologize for the Holocaust. Like, bro, you could be a person whose political family history dates all the way back to the fucking, like, German Communist Party, and, like, be like, but, like my great-grandfather was an active supporter of, like, the anti-Nazi, like, freedom fighters. We were, like, literally fighting against Hitler. It doesn't matter. If you will become a prominent German politician, you have to just say, like, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry we did that. And Scholz wasn't just, like, a simple, like, you know, like, we support Israel, you know, we prefer peace, you know, we want peace to the conflict and blah, blah, blah. No. Like, he was, like, very explicitly, like, Israel simp. Like, he was an explicit Israel simp, you know, literally went so far as to denounce the Palestinian Authority for claiming that they were facing apartheid, openly rejected the idea of initiating a ceasefire, and got mad at the EU foreign policy chief, Joseph Borrell, for critiquing Israel. And he literally just went on to say that he has no plans for Germany to recognize the state of Palestine ever. So to recap, in order for Scholz to prevent looking like Hitler, he decided to support a genocide. Interesting strategy. You know, I personally would have chosen the, like, don't support genocide part, but you do you, my friend, you do you. And a lot of people have been very critical of him. For supporting a genocide? No. Let's be real, guys. Like, guys, I'm gonna be real. I'm gonna be 100% real. Don't get your hopes up. Even for the people that I'm going to say are good, don't get your hopes up for them. Do not get your hope for them. Not a single German politician has called out Olaf Scholz for being pro genocide. No, none of them. None of them have. Okay, scratch that. One of them has, but they suck. Okay, so what are they actually criticizing Olaf for? Well, they're criticizing him for supporting Ukraine, which some say has part to play with an economic crisis that has happened in Germany recently. Bringing in immigrants, which some have said has a part to play in the economic crisis that has happened. And a specific scandal is the fact that there was a point where he allocated, there was funding that was supposed to be going to COVID relief, and then they had a little extra money. So Olaf Scholz decided, I'm going to reallocate funding from this to clean energy. And he didn't go through the procedure, I guess, to do that. I think you're supposed to go through the parliament to do that. This scandal actually led to the breakup of his coalition and almost led to an early election. The election did go on earlier than expected, but generally, yeah. With that out of the way, let's get into some of the issues that are going into this election. Issue number 1, least important, most important. Trump. Shockingly, with Trump's demands of European allies to spend more or face the threat of tariffs or military defunding, many of the top German candidates are wondering whether to work with Donald Trump or to be hostile to him. Ukraine. Outside of the US and the EU generally, Germany has been Ukraine's biggest ally during the conflict, especially recently. But as mentioned prior, Merkel being anti-Putin was sort of the start of it. But there are some people who are a little bit critical of, Ukraine funding. Some arguing, a couple of parties even going so far as to say that maybe they should just look into just not funding Ukraine at all. Energy, because energy prices in Germany are high right now, and a lot of fingers have been pointed to a lot of people for past errors, including environmentalists, because one big thing about Germany is that Germany was actually one of the forefront leaders of the anti-nuclear movement. And many people nowadays, especially even those on the left, are trying to point their fingers and be like, fucking dumbasses, you shouldn't have done that. You should have been pro-nuclear energy. The economy is faltering in Germany. Left-wing parties are saying more public spending should be used to help people out. Right-wing parties say no. But the issue that this is the issue that has been the one that is really, 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 really being a hard focus for this election. And it's an issue that's been boiling for a long time. Immigration. Like I said, this has been a boiling point for Europe for years. We all remember back in the day when the anti-SJW sphere was really pointing out the fact that, Muslim immigrants in Europe. And one of the parties that is going into election actually owes its entire existence on this issue. Criticism of the German EU immigration policies has led to a lot of people to get mad at migrants for a lot of the same shit that we see here. Crime, jobs, culture. People are just not necessarily happy about, brown people being a thing. Germany, it's Germany, guys, come on. You shouldn't have been surprised that they're a little bit of a racist here and there. In fact, one candidate has actually went so far as to blame immigrants for the fact that people can't go to the dentist. For some reason. I saw this clip on Twitter a while ago, but it's fucking hilarious. But anyways, let's move on to the election itself. Parties and candidates, alright? There are 11 political parties in the Bundestag. However, 3 of them only have 1 member, and 2 of them are because they were dissidents of a larger party. The last one did win their member fairly, but I'm not really going to cover them because here's the way Germany works. Okay, so in Germany, there are 2 ways to get a member in the Bundestag. You can either have at least 5% of the vote on a party list, or win a majority in certain constituencies. Some first past the post, some, party list. And then after you actually take that into consideration, there are really only 8 parties that are worth discussing. And up until recently, there was actually a very easy way to point out the parties. Because there were basically 3 groups for the parties, and you could divide each of these groups into right and left. It changed a little bit recently, but, let's just get into it. First, Group A is the mainstream of German politics. On the left side of the aisle, you have the Social Democratic Party. As the name suggests, it's a Social Democratic Party, broadly center-left, generally just like... fun fact, the German Social Democratic Party is the first Social Democratic Party, if I remember correctly, because Edward Bernstein was the guy who founded it, remember? As stated before, their leader is Prime Minister Olaf Scholz, who's of course going to be their candidate in this election. But, funnily enough, due to his unpopularity, many in his party actually thought about replacing him with someone else. But ultimately, he said no. And on the right side of the aisle, we have the Christian Democratic Union of Germany, a Christian Democratic Party. Their leader is a guy by the name of Friedrich Merz, who was actually Angela Merkel's chief rival during her rise to power. He was the guy who was standing in her way, but ultimately lost her. And now, he's in charge of the party. And one of the slight worrying things that people have is the fact that Merz is a more traditional conservative, as opposed to Merkel, who, as I said before, was broadly, I'll be real, she's really close to the center if you're actually being serious. Some of his major policy platforms for this election are restricting immigration, cutting 50 billion euros in welfare spending, cutting taxes, but wanting to push for more funding to Ukraine. However, if you are a person from Bavaria, you may know that you don't actually have the Christian Democratic Union. You, in fact, have the Christian Social Union, led by Markus Söder. But don't worry, he's I think he's slightly to the right of Merz, but he's basically just a satellite party for Merz. Both of these parties can broadly be defined as the Union. Like I said, these 2 quote-unquote parties are broadly the mainstream politics. If you're a boring, normal person, you vote for one of these guys. It's basically the equivalent of voting for the Democrats or the Republicans in the United States. But then there's the contrarians, the people who they don't necessarily disagree with any of the things that the Christian Democrats or they don't really stray too far from what the Christian Democrats and the Social Democrats stand for ideologically, but they're a bit more flashy and different. They're different more in how they look or I guess maybe there's a slight focus. One is the Social Democrats, one is the Christian Democrats, and they're hard pressed we are ideologically Christian Democrats or Social Democrats. Meanwhile, these guys, they're not really that far from them ideologically, but they have a particular focus that makes them look different ideologically. On the left side of the aisle, we have Alliance 90/ the Greens, a green social liberal political party that was a merger of 2 German green parties, the Greens in the West and Alliance in the East. And I'm only mentioning this because of how weird this is. There's actually a very interesting controversy about this party specifically. Actually, technically, it's a problem with the previous parties, the predecessor parties, and I don't know. I'm only mentioning this just because it's just fucking weird. Alright, I'm just mentioning this because it's really weird. Alright. So, the West German party known as the Greens had a faction within the party that existed up until 1987. Now, this faction, I don't know if I can say their name on YouTube, nor do I necessarily want to say it on YouTube, but their main focus in German politics was to advocate for the repeal of Section 176 of the German Criminal Code, which deals with the subject of a certain type of abuse to a certain type of people Just unequivocally. It's a very sad fact about, like, the early forms of, like, the sexual, like, what's it called? The sexual revolution? Where some people were, like, very, very fucked up and tried to jump in on the train to try and, like, get their disgusting causes to be brought up in the mainstream. And the controversy came back up for the German Greens in 2013 when a lot of people were basically, like, regurgitating that part in the news. And then eventually they were like, they decided to actually launch an investigation into how prominent this faction was. Like, I mean, in America, I'm sure if you swing a dead cat, you'll find some Democratic candidate in some part of the country that's pro that stuff too. But you can't really go and find, like, claim that there is, like, a huge faction of the party that is doing that. At least none that I've seen. But the problem with the German Greens is that they had a faction that was prominent, and basically they just wanted to find out how prominent were they. What they found out was, I mean, I can't really find the study, because they have, like, say, like, the study was published, but they never actually, I can't find any news sources that actually say what the study found, but all I know is that the Green leader at the time apologized, so I'm going to take a wild guess and say that their findings were not necessarily the greatest findings, but there is basically, as far as I know, none of that relates to the Green Party as it exists today. So why did I bring it up? Now that's a very good question. The Greens' chancellor candidate is the current vice chancellor of Germany, Robert Habeck, it's interesting. He's actually not the party leader of the Greens. He's actually just a politician associated with them. I guess he is just better than the co-leaders of the party. The Green Party's platform is, like, for phasing out fossil fuels and aiding Ukraine. Like, that's just broad. They're basically just, again, broadly just kind of like a green-focused party of the center-left. And on the right side of the aisle, we have the Free Democratic Party, which is a broadly economic liberal party. You know, I guess they really focus more on just, they basically just focus on right-wing economics, you know. That's basically their claim to fame of, like, you know, being the right-wing party. And their leader is former Minister of Finance, Christian Lindner. There's not much to really say about them. They're just broadly like to some people they would be considered the right-wing, like the Libertarian Party of Germany. But, you know, that's a little bit of a too lenient. And the last grouping of the people in the German politics scene is the radicals. These are the people who can't join any of the above parties because they are perceived as too radical. On the left side of the aisle, we have Die Linke, or the Left, a democratic socialist and left-wing populist party that has roots in East German socialist political parties. The party was always kind of fringe, but nowadays especially, it's starting to lose a lot of ground. Die Linke actually has dual leaders, Jan van Aken, the party member since 2007, and Heidi Reichneck, a newer member of the party. Now, there's one thing I'm sure a lot of you are probably wondering. Like, I don't have much about their policies, you know, they have broadly, like, left-wing policies, you know, like, left-wing populist, like, type strategies, socialism, you know, that kind of stuff. But I think there's one thing I bet you want to hear. Are these guys better on Gaza? And I hate to break it to you guys, but they're not. Like, I mean, okay, I should rephrase. I did, like, a little bit of research, again, like, just doing a little bit of a quick glance before coming back here. And from what I've seen, Die Linke is currently facing a little bit of a problem in regards to their Palestine activism. Because, you know, Germany, again, remember, Germany has the biggest fucking regrets over the Holocaust. The biggest regrets. So it's really hard for them to actually unequivocally just be 100% pro-Palestine, because we have to acknowledge, there are some bad people, bad eggs in the quote-unquote pro-Palestinian movement. And it's really, really hard for them to distinguish the two. And as such, Die Linke has been facing some problems with their Palestinian views. With, like, literally, I think, like, the Berlin Party, like, I mean, like, if you look up, like, Die Linke Palestine, the one thing I saw was that they kicked out a prominent, like, newer activist who's part Palestinian, because he said, like, there's an apartheid state in Gaza, and they're like, yikes, buddy. But due to the fact that the party's heads have kind of been a little bit tiptoeing around the sort of like Gaza policy, has also led to many members of the party to resign. Now, for this election, I will say this. Jan van Aken, he has posted some things about Gaza and Palestine. He has posted 3 tweets about the issue. One of them was recently, and it was pro-Palestinian. He wanted the recognition of a Palestinian state, and he did think that, you know, Trump's like thing, like trying to annex Gaza is fucked up. But to some people, that's like the fucking bare minimum. I don't know if he's like been like way more pro like Palestine than I thought. Similar to the Japanese Communist Party, because from what I saw, I thought like Reiwa Shinsengumi was the only party that really had like a pro-Palestinian sentiment. But like I saw like then I saw the Hassan stream where like he literally met with like one of the leaders of the Japanese Communist Party, and they literally had like a band that was like Free Palestine. So it's like, maybe I'm just wrong. Maybe there's more pro-Palestinian activism in the fucking Delinque than I've been seeing. But remember, there was a German group called, like, there was a German Antifa faction that literally had, like, the Antifa flag with an Israeli flag. So, clearly, Germany's, like, a little bit of in a different realm in that sort of sphere. And on the right side of the aisle of this faction, the Alternative for Deutschland, aka the Alternative for Germany. A right-wing populist party formed in 2013. They're extremely nativist, extremely nationalistic, anti-European, which has led to some people to, you know, accuse the party of being a little bit close to neo-Nazism, like a little, like maybe it's like a little bit of, like, you know, not to be like a little too mean, but like, you know, like a little teensy-weensy, a little too close. And the party has had a handful of controversies about that during their tenure, such as the time in 2017 when their former chairman said the German people, quote, need to make a 180-degree change in their politics of commemoration in reference to the Holocaust. There was also the time that an advisor to the head of the party held a meeting with neo-Nazi influencers to discuss mass deportations, you know, the thing the Holocaust started out as. And especially point out the fact that he wanted to deport some German citizens, again, the thing the Holocaust started out as. The AfD youth wing endorsed the idea of putting undesirables into ghettos last year. That, combined with leaks from inside of the AfD meetings, showing many members literally decrying things like democracy, led to massive protests against the party. Even to the point where the party is so volatile now that despite their most recent electoral wins, 6 members of the party have left. 3 members of the party left because they felt the party was shifting too close to Nazism. 1 member of the party got kicked out because he literally called himself a Nazi. 1 member left the party because he felt that the party was too pro-Russian, while another guy left the party because he felt that the party wasn't pro-Russia enough. There's also been some times, you know, where they do things like they'll have a poster that goes like a little too far, you know. Maybe they'll have a poster that uses like a literal Nazi slogan, or maybe they'll have a guy who's waving his hand in the air in a little bit of a specific angle, you know, whatever. You know, not to be a little bit of a too accusatory, you know, a little bit too accusatory. You can't really call someone a Nazi in Germany without really meaning it. But due to the fact that the German, like, this party was really hard right, and, you know, the Nazis started out as just a hard right party, there's always been an unofficial rule between all the German parties that they would rather form an alliance with each other than allow the AfD a chance to govern. Like, first of all, they will never be part of an alliance, and they will never even get the chance to govern. Like, if they had a majority, the other parties would find a way to make a majority of their own. At least up to this point. We'll get to that in a bit. But first, let's talk a little bit about their leader. Their leader is a woman by the name of Alice Weidel, an agnostic lesbian whose grandfather was a judge directly appointed by Hitler. a man that she describes as a communist. Because she's brain dead. The AFD's platform, calls for things like mass deportation or remigration and ending sanctions with Russia. And up to this point, that was basically German politics. But then, very recently, a new challenger approaches. That party being the Sarah Wagenknecht Alliance, Reason and Justice. The Sarah Wagenknecht Alliance is an alliance centered around a politician by the name of Sarah Wagenknecht, a former leader of Die Linke, who has become critical of the party as they started talking about these weird, strange things like gay rights and refugees and vaccines. Such crazy things that there's no reason why the left-wing party would talk about. Because she's brain dead or something, I don't know. Even going so far as to label the party as Linksliberales, left liberals, claiming that Die Linke had become a tool of the ruling class, and stating that is why Die Linke is failing. And it's a common thing a lot of people think about Die Linke, where it's they're shifting away from actual true traditional socialism in favor of this modern day lifestyle socialism. To the point where when Die Linke held a meeting earlier in the year, and they had one of the speakers being a disabled black guy in a wheelchair, a lot of German fascists were just it's funny, it's funny. But, really, guys, let's figure it out. She's just a third positionist, which basically means she's a fascist. She's just a fascist. Really, at this point, there is literally no difference between her policies, really, and Alternative for Deutschland. Literally, her platform: ending aid to Ukraine, pro-Russian, stricter immigration. That sounds familiar. The one difference is that she's actually apparently the only, one of the only major politicians in Germany that I think has actually talked about Palestine. And she's basically she said some of those typical spiels, open air prison, that she's she did go a little bit normally she did go well, Israel does have the right to defend itself, so you can call her out for that. But also she went so far as to say but the treatment of the Gazans is bad. It's yeah, again, bare minimum, but she's gonna use that and everybody's gonna be she's the true leader of the Palestinian cause. No brainer. The leader is of course Sarah Wagenknecht, one of the richest members of the parliament, whose ruling class now cunt. She's also the person who claimed that immigrants are the reason why you can't go to the dentist. And it even led to a funny moment where she literally said that during a fucking debate, and then Jan van Aken literally said, what? What are you talking about? Alright, now let's move on to some of the events of the campaign. The first major controversy of the election came from the FDP, the Freedom Democrats. Because while it seemed I guess I should mention, the coalition that ruled up until recently was the Social Democrats, the Freedom Democrats, and the Greens. And the Freedom Democrats broke away because of that whole clean funding scandal. But here's the problem. That's what it looked like at first. But then they did some research, and it turns out that the Freedom Democrats were actually planning to crash the coalition long before that. It was a long plan that they were going to do to try and make the Social Democrats lose. And, that would be slightly that'd be a little bit of problematic, but it's kind of I guess the party can do whatever they want. But then, more controversy came, because as it turns out, in the paper that literally says that they're going to crash the party and make the coalition burn down, they labeled the plan, and it literally said D-Day. D-Day was when they were going to ruin the coalition. Not the actual day of D-Day, but they were going to say, they called in their plan that would be D-Day. And literally any reference to World War II and Germany is a serious no-no. Unless it's a very serious and apologetic manner, it's a no-no. So, yeah. Next big controversy is the fact that Elon Musk is openly endorsing and fundraising the AfD, which has led to many accusations of foreign election meddling, which was already kind of a thing that they already did with Russia, because people Russia is funding the AfD, which is probably true. But, people are a little bit concerned about that now. And, funnily enough, the only other party, aside from the AFD, that has not denounced this is the Sarah Wagnick Alliance. Very obviously, because they're probably also getting foreign backing as well. But back to the AFD, the last major controversy is the fact that the AFD has gotten way more mainstream as of late. I don't want to give too much away, but their poll numbers have been pretty noticeably one way. They've been noticeably trending a certain way, and that's a little bit of concern. Some people were concerned at the fact that the AFD might actually just win outright, but another slight concern was the idea that maybe, hypothetically, the AFD could join a coalition. Like, they'd become too big that you would need to form a coalition with them in order to win. Now, a lot of people have been, some people have been kind of like brushing that off for a little bit, yeah, Merz is like a little bit more right-wing, and yeah, he's been a little bit like more open about certain issues, that might lead to the AFD people, but he's just trying to get AFD voters away from the AFD to support the Christian Democrats. He's not trying to like openly align with the AFD, right? Well, they keep asking Merz, like, hey, if the situation comes to it, would you form a coalition with the AFD? And he's maintained, no, I have no intentions of forming an alliance with the AFD. But one thing happened very recently that has made people question whether or not Merz is serious about this. On January 29th of this year, Merz brought an immigration bill explicitly to the parliament. Like, very explicitly. He brought an immigration bill to the parliament. And a lot of the things that the bill said were aligned with AFD and BSW, the Sarah Wagnick Alliance, like, aligned with their views on immigration. And he basically said, like, no, it's just a coincidence, guys. It's just a coincidence. It's just a coincidence that I introduced this bill and that that we vote for it. I mean, it was rejected by not just the Social Democrats, Delinque, FDP, and what was the last? I've forgotten one party. The Greens. Is it the Greens? Like, just to recap, the AFD and the BSW all voted for it. Social Democrats, Greens, Delinque, and the Freedom Democrats voted against it. And the Christian Democrats were actually divided on this bill. Many of them actually flipping because, again, they're like, this is a bill that you brought AFD support to. It's literally like, no. Like, literally, that's like a no-no. Like, the idea that the AFD would vote for your bill is just a no-no in German politics. Just like, no, absolutely not. This even led to the point where Angela Merkel came out of retirement to basically say, dude, why the fuck are you kowtowing to the AFD? They're Nazis. But the reason why is just kind of very obvious. The AFD is very much doing really well in the polls. They're doing really, really well in the polls. Like, let's take a look at some of the recent polls. I mean, I have the polls right here. The poll results. Just like general. Let's just look at the general polls real quick. Like, I mean, very early on, it was kind of like just a very obvious, like, yeah, that's just kind of traditional politics. But as things have gone on, the AFD has consistently polled in second place. The Social Democrats have been basically trounced in their support. The Greens have kind of just been relatively the same. The last three parties, the FDP, Delinque, and the BSW, are the ones that have a little bit of a here and there issue. Because, well, the Freedom Democrats, like, up to this point, Delinque looked like they were basically completely wiped out. But, like, very recently, their poll numbers have, like, recently bumped back up to be a little bit above the 5% threshold. The FDP, they basically polled, like, just right underneath the 5% threshold. So, there's worries about them. The BSW, they've kind of, like, floundered on, like, support. But usually what ends up happening is, like, when the Delinque does good, the BSW does bad. And when the BSW does good, Delinque does bad. It's not always consistent, but it usually is that. And when they poll constituents, it's similar numbers. Like, the most recent one that it has on the wiki is 203 for the Union, 35 for the SPD, 12 for the Greens, 46 for the AFD, 3 for Delinque, 0 for the BSW and the FDP. With another one that I I specifically made mention here. There was a poll aggregator thing that I saw, and it said 5 Delinque seats, 47 Green seats, 117 AFD seats, 152 SPD seats, and 227 CDU seats. The general takeaways really do seem to be the Christian Democrats and the AFD are going to be winning this election, and the SPD is basically kind of like the best the SPD can hope for is like a very close like third or maybe even a second, but the AFD is becoming too big to ignore, and that leads to the problems, especially considering if you divide it all up and then they're still undecided, what next? Well, you need 316 seats for a coalition, and unfortunately, most of these scenarios go the way most of these scenarios go. The CDU, here's the thing: the CDU could use any of the parties, really, depending on the seat coalition, depending on how many seats are there. They can use a lot of the other ones, and people are desperately trying to hope that the SPD gives them more of a bargaining power than the AFD. And there are a lot, basically aside from Delinque, it looks like the CDU could see coalition with any of them. There's actually some question. Some questions, especially with German politics, where the other coalitions have little funny nicknames. They have the Grand Coalition for the SPD and the CDU, the Kiwi Coalition, the CDU and the Greens, the Blackberry Coalition, the SPD, the CDU and Delinque, the Traffic Light Coalition, the SPD, the FDP, and the Greens, the Jamaica Coalition, the CDU, the FDP, and the Greens, the Red and Green Coalition, the SPD and the Greens. Then there's the Red-Red-Green Coalition, the SPD, Delinque, and the Greens. But everybody's afraid of one thing. It's pretty clear. Everybody's afraid of one coalition. The Midnight Coalition. The CDU and the AFD. And that's the thing. For a majority of the campaign, most people are just generally just look. Let's take a look. Let's take a look. Preferred coalition polling. Because there's actually coalition polling, polling for the coalitions that you have. And here are the polls that they have done for this. They have done polls for the SPD and Greens, the Union and FDP, the traffic. They've done the Red Green, the Union FDP, the Traffic Light, Grand, Union and Green and FDP, Union SPD and Green, Union SPD and FDP, SDP, Green and Delinque, SPD and FDP, but they have taken a look at polls for potential Union AFD coalition. Basically, the coalition that everybody really does not like is the idea of a Red-Red-Green coalition. The best coalition, in my mind. And for the most part, most people generally just want a grand coalition. That's basically the majority of the people. They just want a grand coalition. Very early on, people were really into the idea of having a Green and SPD coalition, but now they're at the point where just a grand coalition probably just makes the most sense to them. However, there were two times, very recently, January 31st and January 20th, where the Midnight Coalition did have the majority, a very slim one. Okay, well, not that slim for one of them. Okay, so for that one, it was the Grand Coalition 24, Midnight 25, and this one had Union at 18, and a Midnight at 23. So it's the fact that it's not immediate no is concerning. That's the problem. The problem is that the fact that it's not an immediate no is a problem. And it's because people are kind of sick and tired of mainstream center-left type policies. They want something new and fresh. And unfortunately, since Delinque can't give it to them, they gotta pick someone else. And since people are stupid, they go with the fascists. And the broader conclusion is just very simple. Ideally, I'd want a red-red-green coalition. You get the left wing, you get the center left, you get the environmentalists. You get to have all the broader tenets of left wing unity together. Probably. I mean, it's really hard for me to say like who I would really support. Like, I mean, I do like Jan Van Aken. He does seem kind of cool. I mean, it's really like, I mean, depends on. I mean, I guess it would depend on where I am. Like I mean, ideally, like the most ideologically close party to me would be Delinque, obviously, but you know, depending on the coalition, depending on the part where I am, it would probably depend. Like if I'm in a seat that would allow me to vote for Delinque, like if I was in a Delinque safe seat, then I'd be glad to vote for Delinque. But I'm also a little bit concerned, you know, about the idea of like possibly the possibility of the AFD winning. I'm very much opposed to that idea. So maybe on that principle, I would vote for the SPD. I don't know. I'm not in Germany, but I mean, I voted for Kamala to prevent Trump from getting in office. So clearly, there's some threshold where I would prevent fascism from getting into office. Like, I wouldn't even, I'll be real, guys. I mean, ideally, if I could knock on wood and make it possible, I would have a red-red-green coalition to make Germany great again, to make Germany better. I guess I should use that phrasing, make Germany great again. Make Germany better than it ever was. But I'm not necessarily opposed to the idea of, like, of a grand coalition. Like, for real guys. I'm just saying. I just don't want fascism to win. And I'm gonna be real. I'm just gonna say this right now. I'm just gonna say this right here, right now. First thing you guys gotta do, ban the AFD. Like the first thing that you guys gotta do once you get into office, ban the AFD. You guys didn't ban the Nazis, and look what happened. This is you. If you manage to succeed, you should ban the AFD immediately. I'm sorry, guys. They had a chance. They blew it. Might as well go for broke. Anyways, that's pretty much all I gotta say. Thanks for watching this video. Be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, and click that bell to notify when a future video of mine comes out. And if you want more content from me, consider supporting me on Patreon.